So you've obviously worked with a lot of women. Do you think that fasting is beneficial for women? And this is kind of a simple question, but that's just because a lot of people kind of have this question.
It's actually not a simple question at all. It's such
Okay. It sounds simple. Let's put it
I
that way.
know, it should be simple, but I'll tell you that the biggest reason why I was emphasizing to you that the biggest part of our community is women, and mostly postmenopausal women, is because there is so much misinformation out there, so much conflicting and contradictory information. The general sort of consensus seems to be that fasting is bad for women.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why you're asking me this question, because there's this big question out there, and it seems simple enough, and of course it isn't. And the reason why I was telling you that the big percentage of our community is women and postmenopausal women is obviously because fasting is very successful and beneficial and therapeutic in healing for women. Otherwise, it wouldn't make sense that for over 10 years, we've been working mostly with women and mostly postmenopausal women, because that's how long the IDM and the fasting method has been going on, for over 10 years. So why do women often hear that fasting is bad for women? Well, I'm not quite sure, to be totally honest, because if you look at any religion, fasting has been used for
Mm-hmm.
as long as humans have been around. So it doesn't make sense that fasting would be bad for women, and it would be recommended as a spiritual, as a therapeutic, for always, for all times. But it's nonetheless, what we hear a lot is that fasting is bad for women. And whenever an explanation is given, it's because it's bad for your hormones. Well, which hormone exactly is fasting bad for? And that's where we start to get into that's where PCOS then ties in. Because if you
Mm-hmm.
understand PCOS and what it is and why we wrote the book, then you understand how tremendously beneficial fasting is for women and our reproductive hormones, our other endocrine hormones. So it's my simple answer to your very complicated question is no, I do not believe that fasting is bad for women. Quite the opposite. And I'll even take it to a further point, which is fasting has the added benefit of helping women reverse metabolic age. So as women age, you can actually become metabolically younger by fasting. So there's just a lot to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So there's a lot of layers. There's a lot of misunderstanding about this. But regarding what you were saying, the hormones. Yeah. So the idea that fasting disrupts the hormones in some way. I guess. Do you think that maybe comes from, how if women, or if there's like a woman who's very athletic and maybe a marathon runner and gets a very low body fat percentage, then she'll stop menstruating. Or similarly, just any woman, maybe she's anorexic, or maybe for another reason she loses a lot of weight, and then will stop menstruating. Do you think that the fact that if a woman is very, very thin, like excessively thin or excessively underweight, that disrupts menstruation? Do you think that has some connection with why people think that fasting would be bad for women in general?
I can maybe in a very weird way see where that is coming from, but we do realize that is not the great majority of people that we see. We do not see undernourished, extremely athletic, low body fat percentage type of women. We see the polar opposite. So the people that are coming to us are not people with very low body fat percentage, or not high performance athletic women. What they are is women with metabolic syndrome, with PCOS, with obesity, with diabetes. So they're at the very other end of the spectrum. They have too much body fat percentage, etc., too much insulin, and all the diseases of hyperinsulinemia. So fasting, just to cut to the chase, is a healing therapeutic method to lowering insulin and reversing hyperinsulinemia and all the different expressions of it. So I think I understand what you're saying. Are people confusing fasting with very, very extreme low calorie or starvation diets? Possibly, but fasting and starvation and low calorie diets are not the same thing at all.